Welcome, everybody. We're so excited for this program. Budding gardeners, meet the Beetles. Yes, I was having a little fun with that. I'm a big Beatles fan. Beatles fans, anyone? Beatles? Yeah. All right. My name is Denise Reagan. I'm the executive director of the Garden Club of Jacksonville, and I'm thrilled to be here. I also want to introduce who's somewhere on campus right now, our event ambassador today, Simone Hawkins. Can't see her right now. She's in the purple shirt. She'll be helping out today as well. And then we have a whole league of volunteers here today. First of all, I want to thank the Jessie Bell DuPont Fund for making programs like this possible through a generous grant. And I want to thank our co-chairs of Budding Gardeners, Jean Moyer. Jean Moyer is back there in the corner. Hi, Jean, wave your hand. And Maureen Bayako. They're our co-chairs, and they've been putting on some amazing programs so far this year, and we have a lot of really cool ones left that you can sign up for right now, including next month, Sunflower Power, right? So sunflowers are not just pretty, they do a lot of work, and they feed us, they're beautiful, they're pollinators, they do everything. And so come learn about sunflowers, and that is on November 12th, so just a month away. And then in December, on December 10th, we have Jolly Greens. Yes, I was having a little fun with that. Does anybody know what Jolly Green, like what that refers to? Plants? It's definitely plant related, right? But so I'm a Marvel fan, and Iron Man is always making up little nicknames for the other Avengers. And so what does he call the Hulk? Jolly Green, because Jolly Green Giant? No Marvel fans? All right, well, that was just my little inside joke. But it also works for this program, and it's going to be making your own arrangement using greenery. And on that same day, we have a beautiful flower show. And so everybody's arrangement will be entered into the flower show. So you'll be part of the flower show. How cool will that be? And you can come and bring your family and show them what you did. How cool will that be? So that is on December 10th. That one, by the way, is an hour earlier because we have to get the judging done and everything. So it will start at 9 instead of 10. So put that on your calendars. And when you apply for that, when you register for that, take notes. And then in January, yes, we're already talking about January. I know it's hard to believe, but on January 14th, we have Lavender Love. Lavender is a beautiful plant. It smells delicious. It's really great in food and health products and beauty products. And so you're going to learn all about lavender at this program and plant some lavender and taste some lavender made things as well. So put that on your calendar for January 14th. I would not be doing my job correctly if I did not, as the executive director, invite you to become members of the Garden Club of Jacksonville. Membership is what sustains us as an organization, and you can be a member individually, as a couple, and as a family, and we invite you all to become members. There's information about that at the check-in table, or you can see me or any of the volunteers here. They'll be happy to help you. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, Grace Carter. She's an extension agent with the 4-H Youth Development at IFAS Duval County Extension Office, which is a mouthful. But really, what she loves and what she knows about are bugs. So give a big hand to Grace Carter. Oh, I should note, if you have questions, Tiffany Davis, our president of the Garden Club, is going to have a microphone and she's going to circulate around. So if you have a question, we want to capture it on the recording. So please raise your hand and Tiffany will come to you. And we're going to hold questions till the end, or do you want to do them as we go?
We can take them throughout too.
All right, so we'll be ready. So get your microphone ready. All right, thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay out there? Perfect. Well, like Denise said, my name is Grace, and I am a 4-H agent here in Duval County with the University of Florida's IFAS Extension. So with Extension, we bring knowledge from the University of Florida right to you. And one of our favorite ways to do that is working with our youth population. So we have programs for youth ages 5 to 18. And a lot of what we've been doing recently involves bugs, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. So today we're going to be chatting a little bit about beetles. Now, you've come here today to learn, and you're going to get to do some awesome activities, but I want to share with you real quick some of my favorite information about beetles. And then later on today, you're welcome to come and meet some of our friends that we have over here too. And you can touch a beetle or hold a beetle. So I'm excited to see you over at the table if I haven't yet. But I will give you the quick warning. We will have what some people refer to as creepy crawlies ahead. I'm hoping that by the time you leave here today, you won't think of our beetles as creepy crawlies anymore, but some really cool friends that you might find in your own yard. So what exactly is a beetle? Anybody have a thought? What is a beetle? What makes a beetle a beetle? Any ideas? Yes, right over here.
Exoskeleton.
They do absolutely have an exoskeleton. So that's a great fact about beetles. Beetles are a type of bug that are going to have that strong outside exoskeleton. They don't have bones inside them like we do. Instead, they get their structure on the outside. So that's one thing about beetles. Yes. Do you have another information about beetles? What makes a beetle a beetle?
Sometimes they kind of have little hairs like lobsters do, so when it gets touched, it snaps shut.
So a lot of bugs will have what look like hairs on their exoskeleton. That's a really cool fact. Now, it's not going to be hairs like our hairs because we're mammals and only mammals have true hairs. But if you've ever seen tarantulas are a really good example. They look very hairy and furry, but most bugs that you see will have something that looks kind of like a hair, and they do use it as sensory pieces. So they can tell when there's movement around. That helps them sense when something's coming, when they need to be cautious. So that's a great fact. Any other thoughts about what might make a beetle a beetle? Yes.
Beetles are insects.
They are absolutely an insect. So they're going to have 3 distinct body segments. We call them a head. A thorax is where their wings and their legs connect, and then they have an abdomen. Now, some other cool things about beetles. We talked about wings a second ago. Your beetles typically, they're going to have those hard outer wings, and then underneath them, they're going to have another layer of soft underwings, we call them. So that's pretty distinctive of a beetle. Beetles are going to have chewing mouth parts. So you'll see some of our beetles over here, some of their mandibles that they can use for cutting. And then beetles are really neat because we find them all over the planet. There are more beetles than there are any other type of bug, than there are any other type of animal on Earth. So beetles, there's lots of them, lots of different kinds. Beetles, lots of beetles, they fly. Now this beetle that's up here is pretty cool. This is a diving beetle, and diving beetles can both swim and fly. So if you ever see one of those around your pond, they can do double duty there. So those are some different information about a beetle, but why are beetles important? A lot of times we might think, beetles, they could be a pest. They might be eating our different plants in our garden. And some beetles do want to eat your garden plants, but there are lots of beetles that serve very important purposes for us. So I'm going to talk about 3 really cool things that beetles do for us. Our first one is that we have beetles who are decomposers, and you'll get an opportunity to meet one of these over at our table today. But these beetles will chew up rotten and decaying wood or sometimes other plants, and then they're going to add that nutrients then to our soil. They're going to help break things down and make your soil and your garden a healthy place for plants to grow and thrive. So beetles can be decomposers. Beetles can often also be predators. Now this ladybug, does it look like a scary predator to you? No, it probably doesn't. But guess what? To little teeny tiny bugs like aphids that can cause problems in our garden, they definitely see that ladybug as a big scary predator because lots of ladybugs can eat aphids and other types of small critters in your yard. So some types of beetles are predator beetles, and we do have an example of a predator beetle over there too. So we'd love for you to come meet him. But beetles can serve a purpose by eating other bugs sometimes. So the next time you see a ladybug, we oftentimes think, oh, that's so cute. And they are cute, but they're also a predator, a hunter bug. Now, beetles can also be pollinators, and this is the one that a lot of people don't think of. What animals do we usually think of when we think of pollinators? Right here? Bees, yes, bees are pollinators. So we think of bees a lot of times. Do we think of any other types of bugs as pollinators? Butterflies, yes, bees and butterflies. Some wasps can absolutely, in the back. Oftentimes mosquitoes, but there are a lot of other bugs. So yeah, that's a really good guess there. They might potentially be able to spread some different stuff, but a lot of times our mosquitoes are more interested in some blood that they can get from people and animals, but that's a good thought. Bees, yep. Potentially they could. Honeybees, yep. And then there's one that's not a bug that I'm thinking of. Can y'all think of that one? It likes to fly too. Bats, absolutely, that's one, and there's one more. Hummingbirds, and yep, some different types of birds that like to eat nectar. So there's lots of different pollinators that we think of, but usually we don't think of beetles. And I'll get to those questions in just a second, guys. Okay, good job. So we don't always think of beetles, but guess what? Scientists have looked at fossils and they've found different pieces of dried sap, amber. Have y'all ever seen, has anyone seen Jurassic Park? Maybe a couple of people. Okay, so you know how they find preserved bugs and preserved animals that they're able to get DNA from? Well, guess what? Scientists have found beetles from the time of dinosaurs that were pollinating flowers. And there are even some flowers today that their primary pollinator is a beetle. So there are different types of magnolia and water lily that beetles are very important to pollinating them. But they can pollinate a lot of different plants in your yard. They do like flowers that are very open where they can get to the pollen. Most of the beetles that are pollinators, they like to eat that pollen. So they might nibble on the petals of the flower, they might nibble on the pollen, and then they travel to the next flower and they spread that pollen so plants can grow. So yes, that's really good thoughts there. But pollinators. Now, one other cool thing about beetles is they do something really neat that we don't always think of beetles with. And does anyone know the word for when animals go through totally different changes in their life? They look totally different through different stages of their life. I see this hand in the back. What is it? A life cycle, yes. And can we be a little specific about when they look very, very different in their life cycle? Metamorphosis, absolutely. So believe it or not, your beetles are going to go through metamorphosis just like our butterflies do. So we usually think of butterflies and they have eggs, they have a caterpillar or larva, they have a chrysalis or a pupa, and they have an adult. Well, guess what? Our beetles do the same thing. So they start off as eggs, and then they have a beetle larva there on the right side, and then they have a pupa, and then they become an adult. So if you've ever seen a mealworm, that's actually a baby beetle. And we'll have some examples of that metamorphosis for you as well. So those are some really cool things about beetles, but you do want to be careful whenever you're around bugs outside. So beetles can be really cool to learn about. They can be cool to play with, to hold, but you never want to touch a bug unless you know what it is, because some beetles do have very sharp mouth parts that could give you a bite. Some of them have other defense mechanisms, like they can emit a stinky smell. You want to know what you're touching before you touch it. But there are lots of really cool beetles that you can actually find right outside if you look for them. So with that, do we have any questions about the beetle? Hank?
There's also carpenter bees.
There are, yes, that is another type of bee. You know a lot about bugs. I'm very impressed.
Sarah, did you still have a question, Sarah?
No.
I just wanted to say that male mosquitoes do eat rotting fruit, so they technically could spread the seeds around.
That is very true as well. Yes. Good point.
Insects don't have, some bugs don't have teeth.
That's true. So bugs have to use different types of mouth parts depending on what they eat. So our butterflies, they have a special mouth part that's kind of like a straw where they can suck up nectar. Animals that are bugs that are going to eat leaves, they're going to need a special mouth part that could cut that up. So different bugs are going to have different types of mouths. That's a very good point. Our beetles are oftentimes, they're going to have a cutting mouth part. All right, any other questions? Yes.
How do beetles spread pollen?
How do they spread pollen? That's a good question. So some beetles have adapted to have kind of a scoop-like around their mouth part that kind of scoops up some of the pollen too and travels. They will get a little bit of pollen on them, but they aren't as good at spreading pollen as like your honeybees that have the very fuzzy body that can hold the pollen really well. So they aren't as efficient of a pollinator, but they can get the pollen on them and spread that as they go.
I think we have a question from Sarah now.
Sure. Changed your mind? That's okay.
Keep thinking about it.
All right. Yes.
If I want to look for beetles in my own yard or in a local park, where would I look?
That's a great question. So one of the best places to look, if you have a log or some wood in your yard or a tree that's fallen down recently in the storm, if you flip that over very carefully with an adult around you, you may find some different types of beetles and bugs under there. Some of our beetles are a little more active at night. So if it starts to get later on in the day, you could take a look outside under different leaves is a great place to look, under the bushes. Now you might even see some beetles just crawling by on your porch. So they can be a little bit of everywhere. They do like plants where they can hunt for other bugs or they can hide, or they might be eating some of those plants as well. So you might not just see them if you stand in your yard and look up, but if you get down towards the ground and you look under a log or you look under a bush, you might see some very cool beetles there. Yes.
How many types of beetles are there?
Oh, goodness. I would have to look up the exact number, but there are more beetles than any other. I'm going to get you that answer, Alice. There are more beetles than any other type of insect. So they're the most prevalent type of insect that there is. And so the majority, I think it's around 1/4 of all animals are beetles and around 1/3 of all bugs are beetles. So they are very everywhere. You're going to see lots of them. Yes, sir. Oh, that's a good question. Why do some animals have stingers and some don't? So some animals have different types of defense mechanisms, and some animals have adapted to have that stinger as a way to protect themselves. Some animals can emit a smell to protect themselves. Some animals have bright coloration that they can flash to scare off predators. So different types of animals can protect themselves in different ways, and it depends on the type of bug. And maybe last question here with Hank. Ooh, good question. Do beetles have camouflage? Absolutely. Some beetles are very camouflaged. So I think of like the click beetle comes to mind right away, which I think you might see some examples of in the back later on if you look through some of the books. But they have a color that really blends them in with a lot of trees. You're going to have some beetles that have more of a green color that might help them blend in with different types of plants. Some beetles have a darker color, and that's because they're maybe going to stay down low underneath stuff a lot of times, so they aren't as worried about birds and predators, but they have a darker color. So it's going to depend on where that beetle likes to go and what he likes to do and what he likes to eat, what his camouflage methods might be. So good question. Some beetles have very good camouflage. But with that, I'm excited to see y'all. I'll take all your questions when you come visit us at the table over here, and I'm excited to see y'all. And I'm going to hand it back over to Denise to give you some instructions for your next activities. Thank you, guys.
Let's have a big hand.